What the heck? Morning. You really want me to read that iceberg, huh? Fine. We'll look at the iceberg. You guys are silly. Alright. Bam. We'll go.
Of exposition stuff to get through, so if you're just here for the iceberg, you can click on the timestamp on screen now. I want to start by giving...
Hello? Alright, we're gonna do that. This is a 4-year-old video. Ziggsby, you know that? So it's probably not even fully correct. That's how these icebergs kind of work. Here we go.
Released on March 25th, 2008, Dark Sector was Digital Extreme's first release and in many ways a precursor to Warframe. The game revolves around Hayden Tenno, a CIA cleanup man investigating a rogue agent in the fictional country of Lasria at the end of the Cold War. Many elements of Warframe, such as the Technocide infestation, the glaive, and the Tenno namesake come from Dark Sector. In fact, pre-release demos imply that at one point, Warframe and Dark Sector were actually going to be the same game. This is going to come up a bunch throughout the iceberg, so consider this entry a primer of sorts. A very popular animated Warframe video by YouTube animation channel Mashed. The video follows the story of a new player working his way through Warframe, filled with a bunch of community memes and fun references. This video's success was so great, in fact, that in-game glyphs were made using frames from the video itself, and released into Warframe's in-game market. You can find a link to this video in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason.
Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, this is the iceberg.
A mysterious core element of Warframe's story, the Man in the Wall is considered to be a malevolent entity and a physical embodiment of the power that resides within the Void. He is first encountered during the quest The War Within, but plays a much larger role in the quest Chains of Harrow. He also makes several appearances during or after certain story quests beyond this point. He'll show up a few more times throughout the course of this iceberg, so just keep him as a concept in the back of your mind for now.
Man in the Wall.
Digital Extreme's community manager Rebecca Ford's Reddit account username.
Well, that was quick.
I'm just gonna call it Leyu, fuck it. Leyu is the parent company to Digital Extremes. I couldn't find anything about the original buyout of DE by Leyu, but recently Leyu has been acquired by Chinese gaming monolith Tencent for an estimated $1.6 billion. So, that's something. Many Warframes are released with signature weapons, matching their style. When wielded by the Warframe it was released alongside, many signature weapons gained special bonuses, such as Larkspur's increased ammo capacity when wielded by Hildred, or Fulman's increased mode swap speed when wielded by Wisp. Unfortunately, not all signature weapons possess these abilities, such as Hystrix, Scourge, and Oxani, to name a few.
Ooh, I didn't know there was an Oxani. To find that one.
After Update 10, the Grineer faction was given its own language, and among the new unique words added was the term Clem. The phrase, "Get Clem," was interpreted by many players as the Grineer saying, "Get Clem," evolving into a meme about who this Clem character even was. December of that same year, artist Data Reaper posted the comic, The Chronicles of Clem, a Grineer Lancer who wanted to become a Tenno. The comic grew in popularity, and eventually Digital Extremes introduced Clem as a character in-game with the quest A Man of Few Words in 2015.
Weapon, or do you need to take one? There you go. But be careful, you will be blowing yourself up with that.
Since then,
Don't
he's
blow
grown
him
even more
up!
notoriety and become one of the community's most popular memes. Honestly, if you spend even like 3
Oh
minutes
my
in Legion's Head, I
god.
don't even need to explain this
Why is one of the people saying Clem behind me, Daddy?
one to you.
Oh my god. The heck?
A little gameplay trick. Players
How
can use the
else?
dodge/roll function to avoid certain knockdowns. Tusk Thumper and Grineer Heavy Gunner slams and Corpus Laser barricades, to name a couple of them. As a bonus, you can also slide when falling from a great height to avoid the hard landing animation. Another popular community meme, this one revolves around the exhaustingly long monologue spouted by the corrupted Vor mini-boss every single fucking time he spawns into a void mission. It is so long that he often keeps speaking it, even after he's dead, making it virtually unavoidable. There was a minor spin-off of this in Nata's monologue from the Ropalolis mission, but it never gained nearly as much traction as Vor's legendary speech.
Okay. Bit more
When
volume.
joining a social space in Warframe, you are often prompted to select from one of many given instances of said social space. This is to avoid any single individual space from getting too crowded.
Okay.
These instances can go on virtually infinitely, and shortly after the release of the Fortuna update, the massive influx of players caused the instance Fortuna 69 to generate. This instance was then held open through many hotfixes, not being allowed to close as players traded out places during updates to make sure it remained open. There is so much meme culture revolving around Fortuna 69 that I can't explain it here, I just don't have the time. But just know it was the funny sex number instance of Fortuna that ended up becoming much bigger than it was supposed to. There are spin-offs of this in Necrolus 69 and Cetus 69, but none of them are as well known and storied as Fortuna 69.
Okay.
Also more fun trivia than Iceberg material, but the
After
Great
the release of
Grippy and a
Dark
few
Sector,
of their
Digital
friends all
Extremes was on the
started out
verge
as
of
Warframe
bankruptcy.
content
They
creators.
approached a bunch of different game
really?
publishers with their concept of a free-to-play Space Ninja game titled Warframe, but they were universally turned down. In a bit of desperation, Digital Extremes decided to self-publish the game, releasing it into closed beta on October 24th, 2012. The rest, of course, is history. But if you want a more in-depth look at Warframe's history, a link to the GameSpot documentary will be in the description box.
Oh gosh, the red text.
Whenever the game receives an update or hotfix, it is signaled through the in-game chat by the enigmatic red text. Run by D.E. Darrell, according to community manager Rebecca Ford, red text is known for making quips and giving various previews as to what is showing up in the upcoming update or hotfix. This is a multifaceted story like Fortuna 69 with things like the cult of red text, but that's beyond the scope of my explanation for this video.
Okay. Understandable. Graphic.
With the launch of Operation Ambulus Reborn on May 4th, 2017, an update trailer was released to serve as a preface for the story of the new operation. During this trailer, the operation's antagonist, Frode Beck, uttered these famous words.
Gross. Profit. Profit.
Once again, the community took this phrase and ran with it, but by now that shouldn't be all that surprising.
That's an interesting video. I've never seen that. Yeah, I love the red text
While
too.
the normal level cap for a given Warframe companion or weapon is only 30, certain weapons can level all the way up to level 40, along with the Necromax. This is achieved by placing 5 Forma on these items, as each Forma increases the max level by 2, up to a maximum of 10 extra levels of 5 Forma. Items affected by this include the Paracesis, the Kuvalich weapons, and the Necromax.
Alright.
During the game's time in closed beta, a Founders Bundle was offered for players who wanted to monetarily support the game during its early development. This bundle infamously included Excalibur Prime, Skana Prime, and the Leto Prime, all of which are now unobtainable as they are legally locked behind the Founders Bundle. These bundles were divided into tiers, with the Master tier granting access to the Design Council forum, and the Grandmaster tier including both Design Council access and a tribute in the Tenno Relays that displays the names of all Grandmasters. This program was ended on November 1st of 2013.
Okay. Understandable.
Standing for Potent Orokin Technical Augmentation and Tactical Offensive Device, the potato is a reference to a community meme involving the Orokin Reactor and Orokin Catalyst items.
Potatoes!
Long story short, they look like potatoes.
They do. Very funny shaped potatoes. Oh, finally to the iceberg, guys.
Throughout Warframe, the game's many different factions are shown speaking their own languages and using their own alphabets. While this may just seem like gibberish at first, these languages are all actually just modifications of the English language, with the alphabets being modifications made to the Latin alphabet. Using the keys shown on screen, you can actually translate the text and quotes found in-game, even using the language for yourself if you're dedicated enough to learn such. A lot of these languages can be quite cumbersome to actually speak, however, so keep that in mind. Also, while certain languages may modify the letters in a word when spoken, they don't in writing, which is worth noting. Released with Operation the Pacifism Defect on March 2nd, 2017, the Ignis Wraith is a modified version of the Ignis Flamethrower, featuring better critical chance, status chance, and magazine size. In addition to being given to players who participated in the event, the research for the weapon's blueprint was given to the top 10% of scoring clans at the end of the event. Likewise, many of these clans will simply give Ignis Wraith blueprints away for free to newer players, as they have an endless supply of them. The Warframe subreddit often has announcements from these clans involving when they give these blueprints out, so keep an eye out there if you want one.
Alright. That's cool.
During the Spirits in Black event in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, the Lotus made a surprise appearance as an obtainable primary spirit from the event. She was acquired after defeating a modified Bayonetta on the Spirit board, and could be fed Spirit Snacks to upgrade into the Spirit Nata. As far as I'm aware, she hasn't been made obtainable since the event concluded. Which sucks because I missed it.
I didn't know about that. That is sucky. I wish I could have gotten that.
This is going to be kind of technical, so strap yourselves in. Prior to the Warframe
I'm
Revised
learning
1
things.
update,
Shut up.
status effect chance had a different method of being handled by the game. During this time, a 100% status chance was the cap, causing each shot to deal a guaranteed status effect.
Okay.
Chosen from the elements present on the weapon, with the elements that make up more of the weapon's overall damage being favored when choosing a status effect to apply to an enemy.
Okay, so the one with more damage? More likely. Okay.
Hey all, dumbass here. Originally in this segment of the script, I was going to talk about old shotgun status, but I realized when editing this video that I got all of my math completely fucking wrong. Not only that, beam weapons could actually go above 100% status back in the day, so I need to cover that now too.
Okay.
Quick notes before we start though, the info in this part comes from Darth Muffin and the Warframe wiki, so shout out to both of them. First, for beam weapons, over 100% status chance was actually obtainable, as beam weapons dealt 4 ticks of damage per second, and the status chance was simply a chance for a tick in a given second to proc the status. So if you had 100% status chance, one of the 4 ticks would proc, 200% status chance, 2 of the 4 ticks, and so on. I'll leave a link to Darth Muffin's video in the description, which should also be on screen now, where he talks about this subject as well as how fire rate and multi-shot affect it.
Huh.
For shotguns,
Alright.
the formula on screen here was used to...
That's weird. Okay. So is it saying that status isn't that great on shotguns?
calculate status. To put it simply, the arsenal display for status effects was simply a calculation of the chance for at least one of the pellets in a shot to proc status.
Okay.
On screen, I'll also show a breakdown of some examples of this system.
Chance per pellet. All this is telling me is status isn't that great on shotguns.
Very important to note that if you hit a 100% status chance, then it would kind of wrap around and all of your shots would have a 100% status chance. I know that's shown in the breakdown, but I think it's very important to note because it was a big part of what made status shotgun so powerful.
Oh, okay.
This video by Porphy shows him just completely fucking deleting a heavy gunner with the Strun Wraith because of how strong this was with Corrosive at the time. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and pick back up from the original script now, as the end of it has some valid info about the current state of the game. As a quick primer, I'm talking about how shotgun status got buffed with Warframe Revised in the remainder of the old script.
Okay.
These days, shotguns still have their status chance divided amongst their pellets, but all shotguns have their base status chance tripled to compensate for the fact that 100% status chance is no longer attainable on each pellet.
Okay. That's what I was about to say. I was like, wait. Okay, so... I'm guessing you don't really want to mod for status chance on shotguns? Or am I wrong in thinking this now? Before you were it was really good, but now it's not as good. I'm trying to think.
This is also now more clearly stated in the Arsenal UI.
Very wrong. Okay.
The Warframe
It's interesting.
Gara possesses an ability called Splinter Storm, which shatters the glass on her body into a protective aura that grants 90% damage reduction and damages nearby enemies. If you cast Gara's ultimate, Mass Vitrify, the duration of Splinter Storm is refreshed to its maximum. If you then shatter the vitrification ring with Gara's first ability, Shattered Lash, bonus damage is applied to Splinter Storm equal to 50% of the ring's explosion damage. This damage effectively stacks infinitely so long as you have the energy and the willpower, meaning that with enough effort you can have an aura surrounding Gara that deals 1,000,000 damage per tick, shredding almost anything she touches instantly. It isn't all good though, as falling
My
off
will
the
is
map,
weak.
falling into water, or having a Nullifier or Scrambus aura touch Gara will dispel Splinter Storm and remove all of Gara's damage stacks. Simply forgetting to refresh the ability with Mass Vitrify will also remove all stacks of damage.
Don't even look at me, guys. Don't even look at me. My will for something like that. Hello.
Kuva-Lich enemies have a small chance to spawn with a quirk when generated by the player. These apply small traits to the Lich, from simple dialogue changes like with Bloodhound to gameplay affecting quirks like Deserter or Paranoid. A full list of these quirks and their effect will be on screen now, and you can find them on the
Ooh, Fear of Children is afraid of player's operator. Loner talks about fight alone, forces value. Prone to vertigo. Trophy hunter. Oh, so you don't want to get a trophy hunter. I keep getting vain ones, which is weird. I've gotten a deserter before. I keep getting fear of being alone and Bane a lot.
a Warframe wiki article concerning the Kuva-Lich. The Nova Warframe's ultimate ability, Molecular Prime,
Fear of Kubas is always super funny. Yeah,
normally
I bet.
slows enemies in its effective area while increasing their susceptibility to damage and causing them to explode on death. However, below 70% power strength, enemies affected by Molecular Prime actually speed up. This can be useful for increasing the speed at which certain mission types are completed, and is also just really funny to watch. Interestingly, at 70% power strength exactly, Molecular Prime neither speeds up nor slows down enemies, leading to a neutral Nova.
Well, that probably doesn't happen anymore, right? Because now Speed Nova and Slow Nova are in the same build.
This entry refers to two special mods exclusive to the Elite Sanctuary Onslaught game mode. They provide no gameplay benefits, but instead cause fun effects on enemies hit by the weapon they are equipped on. These two mods, as of the release of this video, are Peculiar Bloom, which causes flowers to grow on enemies when they suffer a critical hit, and Peculiar Growth, which causes an enemy's body parts to be inflated for 6 seconds after taking damage. There was also a third Peculiar mod,
which is funny because Peculiar Growth seems to be, like, inherently on the Kuba Nucor.
Shown off on a developer stream from the game's creative director, D.E. Steve, which caused comic book text to appear whenever enemies were damaged. As of the recording of this video, it has not made it into the game, and nothing has been heard of it since this developer livestream.
I wonder why they haven't released that one. I'm trying to think. It doesn't fit the thematic, is my guess. The comic book text really takes you out of the game there. Because if I saw comic book text constantly appearing, that would really take me out of the space ninja vibe.
Removed with Update 22.14, Trials, also known as Raids, were 8-player missions featuring a greater focus on puzzles, teamwork, and team composition than normal missions. Unique obstacles and challenges combined with high enemy levels.
Killer audience took its place. It was for MVRLY, but they accept too many bugs. That makes sense, because you do get the comics from your MVRLY's quest. But I could see that being the thing. A peculiar audience took its place. Yeah, that makes sense.
Made these missions much more difficult than the rest of the standard game. The 3 trials present in the game before their removal were the Law of Retribution, where players hunted down Faye Heck, the Jordis Verdict, where players attempted to hunt down a Redux Jordis Golem, and the Law of Retribution Nightmare, which was a modified version of the Law of Retribution where new mechanics dialed up the challenge. After their removal, their chief rewards, Arcanes, were moved into the Eidolon loot pool. I never got to play any raids myself while they were around, but a very large portion of the community has been rallying for their return. DE has said that raids are planned to return at some point, but beyond that, the status of their development is currently unknown.
Yeah, I keep hearing them talk about raids. Never seen a raid, but...
In the reactor sabotage game type, the player must complete a series of objectives to destroy the reactor of the ship and escape whilst the ship is falling apart. What a lot of players don't know, however, is that you can actually change the hazard you have to avoid at the end of the mission, as well as how the reactor melts down, by using the fuel and coolant cells provided at the end of the vault section. By placing the fuel cell in the reactor, the player will have to avoid fire hazards at the end of the mission, and must destroy the reactor by breaking fuel injectors present on it. By inserting the coolant cell into the reactor, the player must defend 4 coolant pipes to break the reactor, and then must avoid ice hazards on their way to extraction.
Okay, so just destroying
Lastly,
it.
if the fuel cell is placed in the coolant system, the player must defend a console to destroy the reactor, and will then have to
So
dodge
just
magnetic
destroying
bubbles
it
that
really
spawn
is the
throughout
fastest
map
way.
as they attempt to escape.
That's weird.
There are also a lot of sabotage mission types that don't involve these steps at all, like Mars, Europa, and the Void, but that's more of a footnote than something particularly important to this entry.
Alright. That sounds...
In Warframe, certain mods...
Raids were just 8-player missions, they were chaotic. Well, that's what I'm saying about... That's what I think about the versus mode. If you don't have a good squad, you feel like you're the only one trying. That's why I don't like it.
are what we call set mods. This means that the more mods you have equipped from a certain set, the stronger...
I don't have Vigilante Offense. I think I have ever, but I've never seen Vigilante Offense.
the mod's set bonus will be. Warframe has many sets, such as the Vigilante, Gladiator, and Arrow sets, with mods spanning across Warframes, weapons, and companions. However, a well-known trick with these mods is that you can bolster the set bonus by placing mods from a given set onto the weapon under Sentinel. This is the most popular with the aforementioned Vigilante set, as you can place 4 of the set's mods onto your Sentinel's weapons and receive a whopping 20% enhanced critical chance. You don't even have to max out.
I want these Vigilante Offense. I don't think I even have Armaments.
These 4 mods in order to gain the full benefit from the mod set bonus. The Gladiator set can
Is
also be
Boka
used
caught
to
up
grant
on
critical
Star
chance
Rail?
with combo count
I'm thinking of playing that today.
for melee-focused builds, but only Helios' Deconstructor and its prime equivalent can utilize these melee mods. And because only Helios can equip the Deconstructor, that means that you must run Helios or Helios Prime in order to utilize this tactic. Prior to Exalted Weapon modding being added into the game, players would kit out specially formulated melee weapons to be used to modify the stats of their Exalted abilities. You see,
I'm gonna just start, like, blatantly putting one of my badly modded weapons on screen when I AFK in Warframe.
before Exalted modding, these abilities would simply
is
inherit
based.
the mods from the equipped weapon in the corresponding slot. So melee for Excalibur and Valkyr, secondary for Mesa, and so on. Even though this mechanic was removed for these exalted weapons, stat sticks are still very much in the game for certain abilities that don't technically count as exalted. These abilities still inherit melee mods, and include Gara's Shattered Lash, Korra's Whipclaw, and Atlas's Landslide, among others.
Alright.
After installing the Helminth segment into your orbiter and naming said Helminth, you can actually approach the wall mouth and get an interact prompt, which can cause one of 4 scenarios. If you have a Kavadir Vulpaphyla companion on the ship, the Helminth will lean towards them and either give them kisses or briefly inhale them before spitting them back out. If you have a Kubra or Predacite active, the companion will play and bark in front of the Helminth, which will cause the Helminth to eventually sneeze as an allergic reaction. Finally, if you have the Domestic Carrion Drone from the Deimos Supporter Pack, interacting with the Helminth cause the drone to jump into its mouth and give it a routine dental cleaning.
I want that! We know that.
If the player surpasses 100% critical chance, they will guarantee a critical hit with every weapon strike, and any percent chance overflow will be converted into a chance for an orange crit that deals double the crit multiplier in damage. Beyond 200% critical chance, all critical hits will be at least orange, with overflow percentages being converted into red crits, and so on and so forth. At 300% and beyond, critical hits will still appear red, but will have their critical multiplier damage increased accordingly. Previously, any crit beyond 100% was red, but as critical mods grew larger in number, the red crit was moved and the orange crit was added to aid with visual clarity.
Okay, yeah, I've seen where they talk about that sometimes.
The Limbo Warframe
They talked
possesses
about
an
that
ability
sometimes
called
in some of the
Stasis,
updates I
which
was
causes all
present for.
enemies within his rift plane to stop moving, also halting enemy projectiles. In the past, this ability also halted allied projectiles, which while really cool, really hurt Limbo in team play, as he really just trolled the shit out of his teammates whenever Stasis was active. While I will always miss creating miniature suns with the old Stasis, I think this was a change most people can agree was definitely needed.
Yeah.
This entry refers to the Helminth Cyst, which is a virus that can be spread to players via
I hate this thing.
their infected players. It causes a cyst to grow on the neck of the affected Warframe over the course of 7 days, and at full growth it can be used in the creation of the Helminth Charger Companion. While the cyst can now be removed in the Helminth Infirmary as soon as it's visible, previously one had to wait for the full 7 days before the cyst could be removed. From this spawned the player nickname Space AIDS, which due to its lingering cosmetic effects on the player, was a far from desirable thing to catch, especially if you already had a Helminth Charger. Because it can
Still
be removed
is.
pretty much instantly these days though, it's not as big of a deal.
Still is a deal. Don't like it. Doesn't help that every time you do it, for whatever reason, Ortis decides to be racist. It's annoying.
Prior to his rework, the Warframe
I
Excalibur
don't think
didn't
Prime
have the Exalted
Warframe
Blade
should
ability.
see it.
Instead, his ultimate was Radial Javelin, and in his third slot was an ability called Super Jump. It
Super
would
Jump.
cause Excalibur to jump 3 times higher than normal while stunning nearby enemies. With the advent of Parkour 2.0, Super Jump became obsolete and was removed.
Yeah, y'all told me about that.
During Parkour 1.0's time as the game's mobility system, this melee tech was done to increase the movement speed of players. It was done by slide attacking while in the air, with high attack speed weapons like dual Zorans being popular as they could increase the number of copters in a single jump. With the addition of Parkour 2.0, this tech was rendered obsolete by the bullet jump mechanic and was removed.
I'm sorry, that seems a little faster than bullet jumping. Coptering your beloved.
First unveiled at TennoCon
Are you a
2017,
helicopter?
Be the Stalker, better known as Stalker Mode, is a game mode wherein the player gets to play as the pre-second Dream Stalker and hunt down players who have a Stalker mark. This game type features a ton of little cool things like being in Hunhouse Lair instead of the Orbiter, saying acquiring targets instead of searching for match, and other things of that nature. While DE has said that this mode is planned to be released to the public in the future, it is as of now limited to its occasional use on developer livestreams.
I only saw one of those. Where they used it, where they, like, went and hunted some players. Which was interesting to watch. I'll say that.
This entry actually means 2 different things depending on how you interpret it. In a modern context, it refers to how certain Grineer units can speak perfect English. These include the Boss Grineer, the Grineer Queens, Grineer Pilots and Railjack, Kuvaliches, and the Grineer Rail Operator on the Orbiter Radio. A leading theory regarding this is that these Grineer are more intelligent than the average Grineer, and thus have learned the language using this superior intellect, although for what purpose is largely unknown. The second thing this refers to is that, prior to Update 10, the Grineer had no unique language, instead speaking English. They had very few lines, however, leading to their dialogue being very repetitive and meme to all hell. This will be important again later, so keep these old English-speaking
Like, get Clem!
Grineer in the back of your mind, with the man in the wall, parkour 1.0, and whatever else I end up telling you to put there by the end of this video. After completing the quest Rising Tide, the player gains access to their own Old War-era ship known as a Railjack. These ships are powered by a reliquary drive, a paradoxical piece of technology that is linked to the powers of the Void. Interacting with the drive can yield dialogue from both the Man in the Wall and Cephalon Psi, and rarely when approaching the drive, a giant severed finger can be seen floating within. This is a reference to the story of Albrecht Entrati and his first expedition into the Void, wherein he severed the fingers of the Man in the Wall after closing his Void gateway and studied said fingers to produce various Void-related technologies. Like a bunch of other stuff that I've mentioned already on this Iceberg, we'll talk about Albrecht Entrati later.
Wait, so are you using a finger to pilot that ship? That's creepy as heck.
Originally intended to be released in Update 25.7's Disruption expansion, the Echoes of Umbra are an unreleased item that could be temporarily installed on any Warframe to make it fight autonomously when the player enters operator form, like Umbra does. This was never added, however, and the original items meant to craft it, somatic fibers, ended up being used in the construction of the Lua lens, which in turn became the unique offering from Lua's Disruption node.
Oh, cool. He's got thousands of fingers. Cool.
This entry references a GIF released by D.E. Rebecca shortly after the Grendel Warframe's release. Apparently, during testing
there was
of
a
the
reason I didn't
Warframe,
like
there was
those
a bug
things.
that allowed him to use his feast ability on the Lephantis boss, swallowing him whole.
Oh, I see why people like that boy. That's one way to skip a boss.
Compared to the version used in the West, China's version of Warframe includes a multitude of differences and even some exclusive content. These include Excalibur.
That has got to be the coolest fashion I've seen for Excalibur in a while. I want that fashion. I want to do that white, red, and gold.
Umbra Prime in their Founders package, who is visually identical to Excalibur Umbra but lacks the Umbral Sentience passive and can trigger the Void Orb energy like other Prime Warframes. Carmen Penta, a variant of the Penta Grenade Launcher, Prisma Machete, a variant of the Machete Melee, and the unique Caddis, which is a staff melee weapon that focuses on status chance and electricity damage.
Don't we have these?
Fortunately for us, all of these weapons are statistically pretty bad, so not much is being missed out on. Some unique cosmetics, such as swallowing him whole.
I'm gonna look at this again. China's exclusives. They were added later. Okay.
Compared to the version used in the West, China's version of Warframe includes a multitude of differences and even some exclusive content. These include Excalibur Umbra Prime in their Founders package, who is visually identical to Excalibur Umbra but lacks the Umbral Sentience passive and can trigger the Void Orb energy like other Prime Warframes. Carmen Penta, a variant of the Penta Grenade Launcher, Prisma Machete, a variant of the Machete Melee, and the unique Caddis, which is a staff melee weapon that focuses on status chance and
I
electricity.
like the Caddis, I'm gonna be honest.
Fortunately for us, all of these weapons are statistically pretty bad, so not much is being missed out on. Some unique cosmetics, such as the Umbra Beast Helmet, the Rhino Bronze Skin, and the Guavin Sakara Prime, are all exclusive to Warframe China as well.
They had their own exclusive Rhino skin? That's interesting.
While using the Necromech, the player may rarely encounter a bug wherein the majority of the Necromech disappears, leaving only the core, or cob, of the Necromech remaining. This bug, to my knowledge, has been patched now, but it appeared on an official dev stream once, which was pretty hilarious.
That had been a hell of embarrassing. That a rare bug shows up in a dev stream. Hey guys, your favorite character?
Another fan creation, John Prodman is a reference to a forum post by user Lissa called The Most Badass Ever in Warframe. This post depicted a lone prod crewman taking on the Forward boss in an infested invasion mission and despite all odds, surviving. The community thus dubbed the crewman John Prodman, exaggerating his accomplishments and eventually spawning a whole lore around the character. With the addition of the Index and Operation the Index Preview, John Prodman appeared as an in-game boss after lasting for 1 hour in the Endurance mode at any difficulty. Upon being defeated, he simply shrugs and teleports out of the playspace, dropping his autograph as an orbiter decoration for all players in the lobby. According to his autographed photo, Prodman is a member of Anyo Corp and is also the Corpus Employee of the Month.
Of course he is. That's funny.
Originally known as the Aura Kitties, the Curia are secret map scannables that appear at a
They used to be cats! Why did they change it?
variety of locations throughout the game's tile sets. Scanning a
They kind of look like cats still.
Curia will unlock one line of a poem regarding the origins of the Grineer Queens, with there being 48 Curia in total. These little guys served as a precursor to the game's current Cephalon fragment system, and can still be found and collected for some various rewards. At 50% Curia found, you get the Curia emblem.
Ah,
at
we gotta go look.
75%, you get the Curia glyph, and at 100%, you get the Curia statuette
100%! We're going for it!
decoration for your orbiter. The inbox messages granting these rewards are some small poems by the mysterious Olmedi, who hasn't really shown up in the game at all outside of the Curia messages.
It's like, here's this funny gift. To get John Prodman stuff, you have to last an hour in Index.
Upon completion of the Chains of Hero quest, this jump scare has a small chance to occur whenever the player returns to their orbiter. A version of the player's operator will be performing some action somewhere around their ship, but with only whites for eyes, whispering, "Hey kiddo," whenever the player spots them. Based on dialogue from The War Within and the events of Albrecht and Trotti's story, it has been concluded that this is in fact the Man in the Wall, manifesting in the player's ship for a brief time. I myself have kinda grown numb to this scare, but early on, it'll get you every now and again.
Valus Sentient.
While in the Enrichment Lab's location on the Orb Valus, hacking the console in the back of the facility has a small chance to release the sentient trapped within the glass there. This sentient will then attack the player and the corpus alike. There's honestly a ton of cool stuff within the Enrichment Labs, like the fish containers, or these Verminks hamming it up, or the weapons testing room, but the sentient is the only one of these little secrets that really impacts gameplay. Prior to the mining rework that launched in the Fortuna update, mining on the plains of Eidolon involved tracing the outline of an ore node with the mining tool, granting you more resources based on how accurate your tracing was. This allowed players to draw short-lived art pieces with the mining tool, and while I don't have
I already know why that's not a thing anymore. I'll just give the abbreviation of TTP.
any footage of myself doing it before it was removed, drawing dicks in public lobbies was a good time, I assure you.
Yep.
On the Corpus Gas City tile set present on Jupiter, special red doors can be found in certain rooms throughout the mission. These doors will have up to 4 symbols on them, these symbols being a triangle, a half circle, a hollow square, and a bold square. By destroying a hidden object in the room, called an access controller, panels will open around the room revealing buttons that correspond with the symbols on the door. By pressing these buttons in the correct order, being from top to bottom on the door, in the allotted amount of time, the red door will open.
Okay, yeah, we did this. So that's how you got one of the achievements.
This reveals a purple corpus locker that contains a Gas City Captura scene, as well as a second door that looks into an amalgam laboratory. By using the amp and operator form, this door can actually be opened, revealing special modifications made to the tile set's normal amalgam enemies. These include the amalgam phase Moa and the amalgam Arca Kumikats, among others. In this lab there will be a special corpus enemy, the Vapus Researcher, and another purple corpus locker which contains...
Every 12 minutes, 12 meters traversed by wall running regenerates 10 health over 1 second. This effect can stack up. That is that still a mod?
It's the same rewards as the first. An old era Warframe YouTuber who made fast-paced and upbeat Warframe content. I never watched him myself, but according to comments left on the original Warframe Iceberg post, he left YouTube after being offered a job as a radio person and hasn't been seen around the community since.
Pink shorts.
During Developer Livestream 3, the game's creative director, D.E. Steve, wore a pair of pink shorts. The community, as it does, ran with it, spawning a meme that ended up leading to a pink shorts glyph being added in-game and the pink shorts message being shown during Platinum Prize giveaways on developer live streams.
Hey, editing room cool kid here.
God damn it,
While making
Idris!
this video-
Boka is cute. Go, go. God damn it. Ah. There we go. Right.
I decided to add this entry, so I'm sorry for the abrupt quality change again. In the current game, alternate helmets are nothing more than cosmetic, with arcane.
Oh yeah, we have some people in the community that have some of these helmets.
For category of items not tied to fashion in any way. However, in the past you could acquire items known as arcane helmets, which would give you a minor stat boost at the cost of a minor loss to another stat. These are no longer obtainable, but those who had them prior to their removal got to keep them, so you can still rarely see these in action even today.
Stamina
Was
parkour.
a mechanic of Parkour 1.0 that limited the player's ability to use maneuvers and melee attacks by giving them a stamina bar to manage. With Parkour 2.0's release in Update 17, stamina was removed from the game entirely, as
So I came in after Stamina 2.0, I assume.
it was cumbersome and really annoying.
I bet.
Except for when it came back on Necromex. Wait, what the fuck?
Alright, we're at the body. We'll pick this up next time. This is about the halfway point. So we'll pick this up next time. But so far it looks pretty interesting. Well, I didn't doubt you for it being interesting, Zixby. I'm just saying a lot of this stuff's probably going to be old news or not correct anymore. Like, he's already had to, like, go back through some of this stuff. But, yeah.
One day later.
Zixby, I know what we're doing today. Don't make me beat you up. Alright, let's finish this. Zixby, you sent me one more cursed.
Hi, Boka.
I really do like the GameCube. GameCube's one of my favorites. It has two of my most favorite games on it. Ironically, I love the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. I mean, not the Xbox, the GameCube. Because I love the Pokemon Coliseum games, and I loved Digimon World 3. So, PlayStation and GameCube. Had some of the best games I've ever played on it. That and The Legend of Zelda. Alright. Let's finish up this darn thing. Oh, that's good, Johnson. That's good, Johnson.
By giving them a stamina bar to manage.
Alright, let's see
Parkour
this.
2.0's release in Update 17, stamina was removed from the game entirely, as it was cumbersome and really annoying. Except for when it came back on Necromex. Wait, what the fuck?
Volume, volume, volume. Volume, volume, volume.
An event involving quite possibly the most infamous leveling node to ever exist, Vtuber on Eris. The YouTube channel Quite Shallow has a fantastic video on this, but I'll give the abridged version here. Essentially, when syndicates were added with Update 15, reputation gain was initially extremely slow, sometimes even in the double digits per mission. This prompted players to look for a better way to power grind syndicate standing, leading to the discovery of a tactic involving the Vtuber interception node on Eris. Essentially, by using Excalibur's Radial Javelin, Mag's Shield Polarize, and Trinity's Energy Vampire, players could farm the node and earn syndicate standing at an insane rate. This led to the three Warframe abilities in question being nerfed, only operating with line of sight in Update 15.2. This caused outrage across the community, as this change not only failed to address the broken syndicate standing gain, and thus why players were using Vtuber in the first place, but it also affected players who never used Vtuber to farm. These changes were swiftly reverted, with D.E. Steve himself apologizing for the knee-jerk reaction, and syndicate rep gain was increased. This event ultimately led to Vtuber's removal, massive changes to the syndicate and interception missions, and the eventual rework of the Excalibur Warframe.
Wait, isn't Radial Javelin now line of sight still? Oh wait, no it isn't, because I can hit people behind me. Alright, never mind. Took me a second to think about it.
Ever since the addition of daily login rewards with Update 18, players have noticed that taking long breaks from the game seems to increase the odds of receiving a platinum discount as a daily tribute upon logging in. While more or less accepted as a fact by the community, this theory has never been officially proven by Digital Extremes.
This
theory involves Quill Onko, a character in the town of Cetus on Earth. Certain lines from Onko imply both the existence of other universes and Onko's awareness of said universes. You can listen to some of the lines in question now.
Time is relative. Choose when ready. The choice is made. We are here. You were anticipated. Our interaction begins. We are each one viewpoint within the myriad that comprises the Unum. Eidolon Siet Swong intercepted at isolate node Sad by Tenno Sad Park. But first, interaction. Mercury, Pantheon. Actor, Swong half point hash Swong. Impending intersection with actor half seer point Sad. Outcome unclear. Quill Oban Nua primary observant relay.
There are plenty of implications from this dialogue, but I don't think we have too much time in this video to go over all of them. Something very interesting that I do want to talk about, though, is the other quills that Onko mentions. Will we encounter these agents of the Unum in the future? Only time will tell. Or maybe the whole plot was dropped like all these other ones, I honestly have no idea. There is a surprising amount of in-game evidence implying that Dark Sector is actually a prequel to Warframe. This would cause a shit ton of plot holes in both games if it was actually canon, but the theory is fun on its face. Evidence for this includes the Excalibur Proto-Armor skin, along with its description, the Glaive Proto skin, which resembles the Glaive from Dark Sector, the Nyx Nemesis skin, resembling the Nemesis from Dark Sector, the Technocyte being the name of the biomechanical disease in both games, a prototype Jackal and prototype Grenier being present in Dark Sector, and so on. Like I said, officially confirmed this would shoot both games full of holes, but the implication is certainly interesting regardless.
Wait, how would it shoot both games full of holes? I'm trying to think, because the problem here is, like, the kids in the ship, they come from an alternate universe, basically. Isn't 1999 kind of like a alternate universe as well? It's like in between both?
Prior to Update 14, Loki was one of the 3 starter Warframes alongside Mag and Excalibur. He was later deemed too difficult for new players to utilize as his skills were only suited to certain mission types, and he was swapped out for Volt with the release of the aforementioned Update 14.
Interesting.
Way back in the day, self-revives were limited to 4 per day per player, and eventually per Warframe, with a small platinum fee to recharge beyond that. This was eventually overhauled to be 4 revives per mission, and then changed again so that additional platinum costs were removed. Self-revives these days are 4 per mission and cost a small amount of the affinity that was earned in mission in order to use. This can also be boosted up to 6 revives per mission with the use of 2 maxed out arcanes placed on the Warframe.
Rank 3, not max. Got it.
During the Warframe Christmas event in 2013, the background of the Arsenal screen showed snow. Because at the time, the Arsenal screen was the foreground over just a shot of space, it was snowing in space. This also has a more modern example in the weird white particles that can appear in Arcwing missions, which could be interpreted as snow somehow ending up in space. Prior to Update 11, Warframe's damage system used a completely different model, now known as Damage 1.0. This featured some elemental types not seen today, such as Force Field and Laser, and also lacked features such as combo elements and orange critical hits. It was replaced with the modern Damage 2.0 system later on, which has become a mainstay in the game ever since.
I have come for
After
the
the
book.
addition of the power donation
Hi.
law in update 23.10, a
Doctor.
bug was found that allowed players
I
to
went
increase their
back.
ability strength to monstrous levels. Essentially, when equipping and then unequipping an Arcwing
I'm
in the
doing
plane's
good,
Eidolon, the
yeah.
negative power strength would
Thank you
continuously
for
stack.
asking.
By
How are
then,
you?
linking to a Nidus also affected by the bug, the two negatives would multiply into a positive, leading to absurd power strength values. The video in the background was provided by Xanagoth, and I highly recommend you watch his video where he plays around with the bug. Not only is it hilarious, but he goes much more in depth about the bug and its effects in the description. Interestingly, this bug appeared briefly again with the introduction of Railjack, as spam entering the free flight node and then leaving it could stack the negative power strength like before. This was swiftly patched though.
That's funny.
This one is just a reference to the game's busted-ass physics doing shit like this.
It's never happened to me. Meyer. Oh, that's the
Sometimes
infected
when returning
sword.
to the orbiter, the game will fail to load the proper item being constructed in the foundry, instead defaulting to the Meyer melee weapon. Oftentimes this is quickly fixed once the game catches up, but sometimes Meyer will just get stuck until the player leaves the orbiter and returns. This bug also occurs when visiting another player's orbiter if they have an item in their foundry.
Yeah, I've noticed that sometimes that Meyer's being built, and I'm like, did I start building a Meyer?
This is a reference to a bug wherein the game's pathing occasionally messes up and displays the actual path to an item name or line of text instead of the actual item name or line of text. It doesn't affect gameplay in any way, but it's kind of funny to see.
Alright. Makes sense.
During the Game Awards in 2016, community manager D.E. Rebecca almost let this line slip on stage when talking about the Warframe community.
Yeah, I mean, we have 26 million registered users, which is crazy to say out loud.
As you might expect, this is now widely accepted as a harsh truth.
Wait, what is registered loser supposed to mean?
By inputting special credentials on the Warframe login page, players can access two secret minigames, Happy Zephyr and Wormius. To access Happy Zephyr, the player must type Flappy into the email slot and leave the password field blank. For Wormius, simply type Wormius into the email field and leave the password blank again. In a later update, these could also be accessed by pressing a W button present in the Customization tab for both Zephyr and Wyrm respectively, including their Prime versions. These games also both got moved to the in-game arcade, known as the Ludoplex, purchasable from Cephalon Samaris. However, both games are still accessible through the previously mentioned methods, even if the Ludoplex versions of the games are not owned.
That's cute. I didn't even know that.
I didn't actually participate in this ARG, so all of what I'm going to say here is going to be secondhand and taken from the Warframe wiki. Essentially, in the lead up to the launch of the Fortuna update, an alternate reality game was held by DE to introduce players to many of Fortuna's—
Guys, what you don't realize is she's mother. So your mom just called you a loser.
upcoming characters and lore. The ARG was directed by none other than the business, and used Discord and Twitter to communicate with players. The ARG involves solving puzzles to unlock in-game lore and rewards, using the hashtag LiftTogether on Twitter to communicate with Biz. While originally only limited to a few players by using limited-time Discord invites, a permanent link was eventually generated, allowing any number of players to participate. The Orican Archives has a whole page dedicated to recapping this ARG, which I will leave in the description for those interested.
Interesting. Stop, come back. Yay, we're finally at the bottom.
I don't really want to give this entry any more time than it's worth, so I'm going to be brief. He was essentially a Warframe news YouTuber who got banned after getting into drama with a much bigger YouTuber, being Mogamu. A lot of evidence came out of him being manipulative to his audience, exploiting the game, and just being a pretty unsavory person. Eventually, DE stepped in and banned him, which was probably the most controversial ban in the game's history, as many people felt that he didn't actually break any rules and was simply being banned to make the drama go away. This elevated things and led to the hashtag FreeRevXDev, which as hashtags do ultimately did nothing. Whether or not you agree with the ban, I think those of us that remember this shitshow are just glad it's over these days. Voidglitch was a data miner who was known for posting leaks and in-game drop rates on his site known as Voidglitch's repository.
Alright.
Prior to the release of the Plains of Eidolon, data miners managed to cheat Excalibur Umbra into the game pre-release, causing the practice as a whole to be condemned by DE. Voidglitch was given a cease and desist, demanding he take down his repository, threatening legal action if he didn't comply. This was hugely controversial because at the time, Voidglitch was only 18. I'll leave a link to Brozyme's video in the description where he covers the situation in more detail, but that's the gist of it.
Alright.
Data mining is still very much around these days, but it is not nearly as public or prevalent as it was pre-Plains of Eidolon.
Alright. I feel like I kind of agree with him on that. No, probably not just suing him, but you probably don't want it to be... there to be a whole site being like, hey, look, all this stuff they don't want you to know yet is here. Yeah. It doesn't sit right. And yeah, data mining, a cease and desist for that doesn't seem right either. Like, he didn't hack their server, you're right. I didn't think about that, but yeah, that doesn't feel right either. I feel like both sides were wrong. They could have just asked him and been like, hey, stop doing this.
Ignis Day was a community artist who created 9 of the game's deluxe skins, including Oberon Feyarch, Magnuma, and Trinity Strega. He also designed the original Ember Deluxe skin, however DE made large changes to the skin for performance reasons, causing Ignis Day to get very upset and eventually burn the bridges that connected him to DE. In the background you can see his original apology post on the Warframe forums. We never got Ignis Day's version of the Ember Deluxe, instead getting the Ember Vermilion skin. These days, artist Liger and Izuka creates most of the game's deluxe skins. Telluric was a former chat moderator for the game, who went on a rampage banning people from chat for various reasons. He was eventually removed from the mod program and went berserk on Twitter before apologizing on the forums. The YouTuber Retalius has a great video and a much more in-depth video on this subject, and I'm honestly just gonna gloss over it here because I'm kinda sick of the drama shit at this point.
Okay, crazy person. Got it.
Grape Prime was an improved version of the normal
Stitch it to
grape
the
that falls
fence!
from air vents when entering missions on certain tile sets. It was available on April 1st, 2014 for 1 minute after logging in for the price of 9,001 Platinum. It possesses 3 unique mods that add new effects to the mission entry animation, and allegedly only one person was ever able to actually acquire the item. Or at least, that's what the wiki would like you to believe. In reality, this item doesn't actually exist anywhere in the game's code, and was just a joke from DE that the Warframe wiki played into its own article. I highly recommend you read the original Warframe wiki
Okay,
article,
you're making me
though, as
dizzy
it's
by
super clever
watching
and
that.
a fun time all around.
I can't look at that because it's making me dizzy. Apostate!
This is what you are. A female singer can be heard, followed by a choir of children. However, in the track Apostate, the female singer is absent, leaving a disorganized
I almost spit out my
children's choir
drink.
calling out for their mother. This is a reference to the abandonment of the Tenno by the Lotus and the quest Apostasy Prologue, and is a neat and very well
Why did they do this to Princess Leia?
The songs and their respective moments in the story. When the reveal trailer for the Duviri Paradox was released, a lot of people thought that the adult male seen in the trailer was Dark Sector protagonist Hayden Tenno. This was disproven by DE Jeff in a developer livestream. Back during the closed beta of the game, Warframe abilities...
I'm kind of curious why they don't let your... Because right there, your operator was able to hold a weapon. I wonder why that's not allowed.
were actually
Prostate.
considered mods.
Shut
and had their own
up,
special
Wombat!
slots and mod cards. They could be removed to increase the player's total mod space, however this mechanic was eventually removed in favor of a more streamlined experience. As a fun fact, there was actually a point in time where Warframes only had 3 abilities, but this was changed to 4 quite early in development.
I'm trying to think, what would be the use of having Rhino Charge as the Helmeth ability? I guess it's like... For early Warframe, it's an OKCC?
Initially exposed by YouTuber Tactical Potato, the Riven Mafia was a group of players who dominated the in-game Riven mod market under the clan the Riven Dealers. They were known for cornering the Riven market and scamming players by dominating the market and skyrocketing Riven prices. They found themselves in the public eye after taking down the bots used by Warframe community site Semlar and its Riven trading and prices sections, which were valuable resources in determining Riven prices and consequently hurting the ability of the Mafia to scam players. This attack was done by a user called the Faceless Dealer, who went on a huge ego trip over Discord before getting banned. Except for that, apparently, the person who reached out to Semlar and gloated over Discord about the bot bans was an impersonator of Faceless, and it was the imposter that got banned? What the fuck? Honestly, this is just a great example of how off-the-wall insane the Warframe community can get sometimes, as if the previous entries on this list weren't enough proof of that. I'll drop a link to Tactical Potato's video in the description if you want to look into the situation more. It's really fucking weird. The Requiem mods used to kill Kuva liches actually have more meaning than just lich hunting. By leveling up in the Entradi and Necroloid syndicates, the player will unlock the story of Albrecht Entradi, the first Orokin to access the Void, along with the true meaning of each Requiem. See, he finally came back. Took us a pretty damn long time though, didn't it? At the end of the story, Albrecht recites the full poem from the descriptions of each Requiem mod, which is both a cool touch and also helps to illustrate Albrecht losing his fucking marbles. If you haven't leveled up through those syndicates in game and don't mind the spoilers, I highly recommend listening to the story of Albrecht yourself, as it's a great listen. I'll drop a link in the description if you care.
To cosmic madness, laws submit.
Did he lose his marbles? I thought he's, like, super sane. He's just a bit, like, twisted.
Featured in the Warframe Google
comic
series, the Erogia Medica
Very
is an
twisted,
ancient
but
Orokin
still.
device that is being sought out by Captain Vor in an attempt to cure the clone rot of the Grineer. As far as I'm aware, the device has not and will not appear in-game. Similar to the power donation bug, spamming the free flight node would allow you to duplicate certain companions and Warframe ability spawns. This wasn't very practical as it would actually break enemy spawns and render missions completely undoable, but it wouldn't break ram sled spawns, allowing me to capture this legendary footage of a metric fuckton of rumblers kicking some unsuspecting Grineer ass. To my knowledge, this bug was patched, which is honestly tragic because this shit was super fun, but all good things must come to an end. This was a super weird situation where referring to the Warframe Nezha as a trap in region chat would get you chat banned. This ended up getting so bad that even just linking Nezha and the kinetic siphon trap item in chat at the same time would get you banned. There was a bunch of other drama regarding this on Twitter, but I'm kinda over that shit at this point. While the nonsense with this has since died, I will forever have a tribute to it in my orbiter, as watching huge waves of people get banned from region chat will always be some of the funniest shit I have ever witnessed in a video game.
Oh, is it not a thing anymore? Have they embraced the trapness that is Nezha?
Back during the closed beta, the game's introduction took place in an empty white room, with the Lotus instructing the player on basic maneuvers and mechanics as they wandered around the small space. This was eventually replaced with the Cryopod intro, which has since been replaced with the current Ostron Town intro.
Okay. Vampire Lotus! Hello?
During Halloween of 2013, the Lotus's transmissions depicted her as a vampire. To my knowledge, this was never done again, but it's a fun piece of history nonetheless. Also worth noting that D.E. Rebecca, the voice actress for this character, is into vampires, so there might be a correlation there.
Hey,
Are there
cool kid here
many
again.
Portuguese workers in Ireland? The economy in Portugal is relatively poor. I don't know. I don't live in Ireland. I wish I did. Ireland was one of my... Is on my bucket list of places I probably would live.
While making this video, I forgot to talk about Solar Rail PvP during my original recording session because I'm stupid. Basically, back in the day, clans could take control of locations around the star chart called Dark Sectors. I know that's confusing because of the game, but bear with me. These sectors were controlled after a clan or alliance deployed a solar rail to that area, and clans could engage in PvP fights over these rails in order to vie for the boons of controlling a given dark sector. This was removed with the inclusion of Armistice, and to this day, much of the Orokin Dojo lab is now completely worthless. Alright, back to the abruptly higher quality microphone.
Huh. That was a little weird.
Throughout Warframe levels, cephalon fragments can spawn around
Oh
the
yeah,
map.
these things.
Scanning a given fragment 3 to 7 times will unlock a codex entry, with each in-game destination, with the exception of the Kuva Fortress, having anywhere from 2 to 3 entries to unlock. However, when viewing an entry in the codex, a faint static can be heard. Following this static with the mouse will eventually lead to the player hitting a secret node and getting a transmission from a character known as Orden Karis, the Beast of Bones. By listening to all of the fragment's bonus transmissions, the story of Orden and his eventual transformation into Ordis is told. I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested in the full story. These secret transmissions are actually present in a ton of lore entries, such as the Thousand-Year Fish on the Plains and the Mem fragments of the Valis, but I think the Cephalon fragment is the most notable, both for doing it first and for doing it so damn well.
Oh yeah, we know about this. We watched that video.
In the original concepting stages for Warframe, many frames were planned to have other gender alternatives. Ember originally had a male counterpart named Blaze, and Ash was originally a female early on. While this concept was scrapped pretty early, one female spin-off did actually make it into the game, being Nyx, who was originally the model for the female Excalibur.
Which they actually allude to with Eleanor being his sister. That makes sense.
In her Laverian entry, Lore Master Drusus explains that Avara was part of a squad that was permanently destroyed by an ancient beast known as the Myrmidon. Zaku, conversely, is made of 3 destroyed Warframes, the number of frames that were in Avara's squad and destroyed. This connection, while enticing, is pretty easy to shoot down just using explanations from in the game. Grandmother explains that the frames that make up Zaku were destroyed during Void expeditions and not by the Myrmidon. A fun theory all the same, and one that might actually end up being true with a little bit of retcon work. This is another one of those entries that refers to 2 different things. In Dark Sector, the game's antagonists speak Russian and visually appear as a sort of proto-Grineer like I mentioned earlier. This also refers to how people thought that the Grineer language sounded too much like Russian after it was released. Either way, I decided to make this.
That's dumb.
This refers to a really strange bug where
No, that wasn't where Zazu got his pieces. A lot of people allude to that because there's 3 people in their squad that got destroyed, and Zazu's made of 3 frames.
Sometimes a random Excalibur would appear in your equipment at the end of the mission. This has since been fixed with the new end of mission screen, but I'll never quite understand where the bug even came from. I mean, I get that Excalibur is the game's placeholder for most things, but what is it even placeholding in this instance? During the 2013 Christmas event, the Grineer had reindeer antlers.
What? I want reindeer antlers!
Sometimes strange connection issues can result in some really fucked up, weird, and generally just cursed things coming from opening a relic. I don't know if this has been fixed, as I don't run relics all that much these days, but it's still funny regardless. Also, in my humble opinion, the Silver Forma is also a cursed relic item. Why the fuck does that thing even exist?
You can see how old this video is, because now the Silver Forma is one of the best ones. This double Forma is awesome.
On the Plains of Eidolon, the Eidolon Terrorist boss can normally only be active at night, retreating into a nearby body of water when the sun rises. However, there is a very rare bug where sometimes he'll just be roaming in broad daylight. To a Warframe novice, this image probably doesn't seem too odd, but to your average MR10 Plus or so, this is extremely cursed. There are actually some cosmetic items in Warframe that can only be acquired from the Steam community marketplace, leading to some of the most rare and expensive Warframe skins in existence. I'll have a list of all these items on screen now. I actually own the Cyandanas because they're pretty cheap, but some of these are just fucking bananas. As a pseudo spin-off of this, the consoles have their own supporter packs with their own exclusive skins, and you can also get special cosmetic rewards for playing through Discord, but none of these are as obscure as the Steam marketplace.
Interesting. Alright.
This was the sort of precursor
I
to
have
the
noticed
Trap
those,
Ninja
by the way.
entry. Back in 2014 or so,
Some of them
if
are
you
like
said the word
$30.
Scumzilla in chat, you would get chat banned. This was because the word Nazi is present in the middle of the word, which was picked up by the Kickbot. This was changed pretty quickly, but it is another one of those irrationally fond memories of this game for me. Especially because for a long time nobody actually knew why they were getting banned, so they would just get baited by other players into saying the word. Historically, Digital Extremes has released some promo websites for updates coming to the game. These include the Sacrifice Update website and the Update 15 website, among others. While the Update 15 website is no longer up, you could actually input the Konami code on the website and get Great Prime to fly by your screen. You can actually still do this using the Internet Archive, and so I'll leave a link to that in the description if you want to play around with it.
Huh.
During the game's closed beta and some of the open beta, many bosses looked nothing like they do today. Captain Vor was a red butcher, Faye Heck wasn't a robot, Kayla Defame was a ballista, and Pluto had a completely different boss in the way of Arnatina, whose transmission model was eventually repurposed and turned into Darvo. I'll leave a link to a video showing the evolution of these bosses in the description if you're interested.
Shared tilesets. Yeah, there is some shared tilesets, right?
Piggybacking off of the previous entry, the Grineer and Corpus didn't have unique tile sets during much of the game's closed beta and instead shared locations. During this time, the Grineer also used Tenno weapons in addition to the whole English-speaking thing that I mentioned earlier.
And here I thought the Grineer couldn't get uglier.
Shortly after
Now
Corrupted
I have
Vor
to
was
burn my
released, there was a
eyes seeing
small
graphics
1 in
from 2
100 or so
generations
chance
ago.
that instead of Vor's normal spawn transmission, the transmission window would simply display a default Excalibur, who would say nothing and then leave a few moments after appearing. This led to the urban legend that Excalibur haunts the void, which has since died off, much to my sadness. Before the existence of the modern mod system, Warframes and weapons instead had skill trees. These were divided into 2 categories, being 15 normal upgrades and 30 supercharged upgrades on Warframes, with only 15 supercharged upgrades on weapons. These supercharged trees were only accessible after using the potatoes mentioned way earlier in this video. This was removed before the end of the closed beta in favor of mods. A concept demo for Warframe/Dark Sector was released in 2005, showing off many of the concepts and characters that would eventually make their way into both Dark Sector and Warframe. There's some really cool proto-Warframe type stuff in this trailer, so I'll leave it in the description if you want to give it a watch. It's pretty enlightening, to say the least. Remember how I told you to remember the old English-speaking Grineer and their memeable phrases? Yeah, that's finally relevant now. One of the many phrases that community members mocked during the
Ow? The heck? Alrighty then.
closed beta was Combat Formation Bravo, leading many players to wonder what this combat formation was and if there were even any others. Eventually, a bug where Grineer troops would stack themselves vertically was dubbed as this mythical combat formation. There was a spin-off in Combat Formation Alpha where enemies would stack themselves horizontally behind cover, but it never reached the peak that CFB achieved. This, of course, isn't around anymore, part of some weird bugs every now and again, but we do have these screenshots to admire, so that counts for something. The Oro is an enigmatic power possessed by both the Tenno and certain enemies in the game. According to Teshin, it prevents those who possess it from dying. Outside of being used in certain Conclave game modes, not much is known about the Oro, and it doesn't even really show up in-game at all. There is a theory that those exposed to the Void are granted the Oro, but considering the death of Rel in Chains of Harrow, this may not be the case. I personally think this was sort of a proto-Kuva from a story perspective, and eventually got dropped in favor of the Yuvan Theater, but I don't really know for sure.
We already knew this part of the... How is this at dark
Warframe
water?
has often jokingly been mocked for its lack of endgame content, leading a lot of players to create their own endgame. The most popular of these is Fashion Frame, wherein players try to make their Warframes and equipment look as badass as possible. Not gonna lie, I kinda agree with this one, but it is sort of exclusive to the whales if you really want to get into it. Keystone, later renamed The Amazing Eternals, was an in-development multiplayer shooter game by Digital Extremes that eventually got cancelled. It was a class-based shooter that was shut down so that DE could focus more of its resources on Warframe because it was so much more successful. According to the Wikipedia article, the commercial failure of Lawbreakers and the overall disinterest in the game's closed beta and alpha contributed to the cancellation as well.
Guys, you need to stop calling every class-based shooter an Overwatch clone. There were games before Overwatch that did it. Overwatch honestly sucked even at the start. It just had a better free-to-play experience.
Back when the Sergeant boss was still named Sergeant Neff Anyo, many people would mock the boss's name due to him literally just being a reskin capture target. Names like Derp Anyo and Nerf Anyo were popular, eventually culminating with the community concept for Derf Anyo, who was apparently Neff's nephew. He was officially revealed by DE on DevStream 30 as a support unit to accompany the soon-to-be reworked Sergeant. This rework was never released to my knowledge, and Derf has since fallen off the face of the system. Neff Anyo has been repurposed into a major story character, but he is currently not a boss fight, and the old Sergeant boss is still a total pushover. Derf's design appears to have inspired the Komba and Scrambus enemy types, but Derf himself has not appeared in-game. Hopefully sometime in the future this part of the video will be wrong, but we'll have to wait and see. A bug that rarely appeared during the 2017-2018 era, a bunch of black squares would just appear on the player's screen pretty much at random, blocking vision. These squares would sometimes disappear when changing rooms or leaving the mission, but could require a full restart if my memory serves me right. These could still be in the game under certain circumstances, but I myself haven't encountered them in years, so, to my knowledge, this bug is busted.
Corpus Guilds.
As pointed out by Warframe lore channel Stallard, Corpus text and insignias reveal various houses that control different aspects of the Corpus, including robotics, manufacturing, and transportation. This is a pretty dense subject, so I'll leave Stallard's video in the description if you want to watch it. I highly recommend it though, it is super interesting, and I really hope DE fleshes this out more in the future, and that it doesn't go the way of the Arcane Machine.
Third Orb Mother?
In an unmarked lake on the Orb Vallis, a strange third Orb Mother lies in wait. As a fun fact, you can actually use a K-drive to get out of bounds on the Vallis and then clip through the floor to see the full body of the orb. It looks almost like a collaboration between the Corpus and the Grineer, which is pretty cool. While it is supposedly going to launch with the Corpus Queenpin release in 2021, this fucker has been sitting around since 2018, so my expectations are rather low.
Oh. That one looks terrifying, actually.
The Entrati Syndicate, all of the Entrati family members have their names revealed, with the player even receiving their own Entrati name. However, the name of Grandmother is never revealed, with her saying, "I know perfectly well who I am." The true nature of Grandmother's name will likely remain unknown.
We call Grandmother Grandmother because Grandmother is
this
Grandmother.
This gif of DE Steve from TennoCon 2018. Absolutely majestic.
What?
Rap, tap, tap.
Oh god. I almost had a moment there.
While at this point we're really just getting into shitpost territory, a lot of these are actually still rooted in truth, such as this one.
We call
You
Grandmother
remember
Grandmother
Larry Mika,
Zigsby!
the deluxe skin artist who replaced Ignis Day from earlier? Before he was hired by DE, he apparently drew NSFW Warframe art. This isn't the only example of DE working with Rule 34 artists, but it is definitely the most high-profile one. Also, with characters like Wisp in the game, DE basically does just create Rule 34 themselves at this point. I shit you not, this one actually has an explanation. As explained by Reddit user NilRoomR, Jimmy invented transference in the first episode of the show when he brought his pants to life. Was Jimmy the first Orican? Maybe Sheen found the void in Planet Sheen and became the first Tenno? Was Carl the first Grineer? DE, please give a statement on this.
Oh my god. They're never gonna even talk to you about that.
This extremely cursed submission to the Warframe workshop, featuring the helmet of the Loki Warframe without the skin. The do not research advice here is honestly valid. This relates to the 2005 concept demo from earlier, where a black woman is instructing the Tenno and seemingly serving the role of the Lotus. Whether or not the Lotus was originally planned to be African American is unknown, but obviously this didn't make it into the final product.
Xenoric is ooh.
The Xenoric symbol visually resembles an OWO, as in, oh whoa, what's this?
Uh-huh.
This is kind of a spin-off of the Revive with Platinum entry from earlier, but apparently at one point you actually could buy Revive boosters with credits prior to their removal. Or maybe not. I'm honestly not 100% sure on this because there's so many conflicting reports, but either way, shit's whack.
The fuck did Kullert just hear, and how can Kullert set fire to it?
You didn't like the uwu?
Considering that the exclusivity and demand for Excalibur Prime led to the creation of Excalibur Umbra, it isn't too far of a stretch to theorize that the similar demand and exclusivity regarding Great Prime may lead to a more widely available Great Umbra. Maybe this time, the damn thing might actually be in the game too. Who knows? This is just a spin-off of the meme, every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized, from the Mario 64 Iceberg. See, this is why you should have watched Mishkaz's video first. Now the joke doesn't make sense.
Like the seek and Kullert enter the chat. It happened. The frick. It was planned. Kullert calls
Post-migration
BS
occurs in Warframe
and
when the
cheats.
host of a lobby disconnects or leaves, and the game assigns a new host for that lobby. This process is notoriously buggy, however, often completely dismantling squads, removing all acquired weapon and Warframe XP, and even in some very rare instances, straight up putting the player in a completely different squad on a completely different mission node. Likewise, an entity this powerful may be the true final boss of Warframe, which I imagine is only defeatable after Gera builds up 1 billion stacks of damage and destroys the game's servers with Splinter Storm. But for now, this is just a theory. When a Warframe account gets permabanned, it technically is only banned until January 1st of 2035. This has spawned the theory that all accounts will be deleted on this date, so that those who were banned will never get to play the game again, no matter the cost.
Ooh.
Ironically enough, lastly on this list, we have Primed Soon. A community meme involving how often DE says that certain updates and features will simply be released soon. As you can see on screen, the Prime version increases the duration of Soon by 120%. Maybe Derf would actually get added into the game if people stopped using this mod, but I doubt I can make everyone even take it off, so I'm not gonna try.
Okay. We're done with that. I'm done talking about it. I swear to God. If anyone asked me to look at the other ones, no. Because most of that video was cursed. And I'm going to tell you right now, Zigbee, I'm not watching that one.